Colours. That's what strikes us right from the start when we discover Australia. Our eye is first drawn to vivid or unusual hues. The colour of the sea or of an ancient and sacred land, the sparkle of the foliage or of some precious item. So why not explore Australia through the filter of a colour? Together with green, golden yellow is Australia's national colour. It symbolises the golden sand of the beaches and the mineral wealth of the southern land. Let's discover Australia through the colour yellow. South from Victoria State, the Great Ocean Road winds along the Pacific coast. It offers a spectacular scenery featuring crystal clear water bordered by a stripe of spotless sand. At the end of Australia's most beautiful road, the ocean swell comes crashing down against high limestone cliffs. The 12 Apostles, gigantic pillars of stone, rise above the sea in Port Campbell's National Park.
I'm Philippe. I've lived in Port Campbell all my life. I've always had an interest in the ocean, whether it be sailing or boats. Morning, crew.
Morning.
Let's get out of here. I do own the charter boat in Port Campbell at the moment. I have done for 12 or 14 years. So the best way to see the 12 Apostles and the Lockhart Gorge precinct is by boat. It is an experience that's unique. So by doing the tour in a boat, you are actually below the cliff line and you're looking up at these majestic stacks and cliff faces. You see the bits and pieces that are falling off. As we're going in and around the cliffs, the perspective, the views change dramatically. You see the Apostles stacks appearing over and from behind the other one. It's all a new experience as we travel along. That's what makes it a memorable trip. When the conditions change, the experience changes, and it can be quite challenging, wet and up and down and bumping and smashing and waves coming over the boat. But that's all fun. There's nothing dangerous about it. It just adds to the experience. In the end of it, it's the experience that matters. Okay, crew, I think it's time for us to be heading back. We've got a front coming in here. It's going to be wet and windy, so just hang on. Just make sure everyone's hanging on. Southern Ocean we're dealing with. It's not a lake, it's one big swell generator, and it can come anytime. But conditions can change dramatically, as we've experienced. Oh no, this is not too bad. It can get a lot worse than this. Righto, got you.
When the sea refuses visitors, it's possible to discover the area on foot by following the coast.
What we're looking at when we go out there is limestone cliffs. The limestone was laid down under the sea floor 30 million years ago. It's a special place for me. When this is calm, on a calm day, there's little rock pools all through here. And this is actually where I learnt to swim as a, I don't know how child. Mum used to bring us down here as kids. Obviously not today, there's no swimming today. It's quite dangerous when it gets like this. We have to remember that 10,000 years ago, the coastline was 2 to 4 kilometres out to sea from where it is now. The limestone, sheer cliffs, fresh water again plays a big part in that, because as the water runs over the edge of the cliff, it finds a crack, seeps into the crack, dissolves the limestone, and you get what they call slab erosion. So the obvious ones are the wind and the waves are causing erosion, but the more subtle one and a big influence is fresh water, which dissolves limestone. And as the waves wrap around a point, they change direction, and they'll, down the headland, they'll gouge out the limestone where it's softer, eventually forming an archway. Then over another period of time, the archway falls in and you're left with this stack that's, as we've got out at the 12 Apostles. That's Elephant Rock. You see there's an archway through there. There used to be an archway down onto this little stump down the bottom here with another tunnel through. I think it fell down the archway in about 1943 or something. I know in my lifetime I've seen 3 or 4 stacks fall over, but I've also seen 3 or 4 stacks made from different caves from the erosion process. Yeah, it is a dynamic coastline changing all the time. It could be in 10 minutes, it could be in 10 years or 100 years, we don't know. But I do know that it's going to fall off. The cliffs are yellow. When the sun shines on them, that yellow is spectacular. In the morning it's one colour, in the afternoon it's a different colour. Miles out to sea, you wonder what the hell is that big yellow glow in there. In Port Campbell we do get some pretty severe conditions, but it is a nice area to live in. The local Aboriginal name for the area was Parichi Hurong, and the translation of that is the spirit that mocks you. I sort of feel that's the case, because no matter how important you think you are, there's always something around that's much more important.
By law, you must not tamper with or remove any aircraft equipment unless authorised. You must comply with any instructions from our crew.
Smaller than Ireland, Tasmania is a wild island that belongs to Australia. Before European colonisation, Tasmania was but a huge forest. At the end of the 18th century, England forced colonisation by deporting thousands of convicts. They were to build Australia and would, at the same time, make some room in the English prisons. And so in the southeast part of the island, Port Arthur became one of the toughest labour camps of its time. The unlucky ones were condemned to hard labour. The situation worsened when a new prison system was implemented: full sensory deprivation. Prisoners were locked in solitary confinement 23 hours a day and kept their chains when going for a walk. Many prisoners became mad, and to deal with this, a psychiatric ward was built. Australia accepts this painful past by honouring the memory of the victims of this dark period. The asylum for mental patients has been turned into a museum, and it's now possible to visit this location with its bleak and violent history. Once when visiting Port Arthur, the novelist Mark Twain wrote, "Everything about the place was a discord. Heaven could be found right next to hell." drive south from Hobart, the Huon Valley takes its name from the discovery of a soft resinous tree, the Huon pine. The first colonies quickly started to use it because of its resistance and ability to never rot. Considered king of the pine trees, the Huon pine quickly became the victim of its own success. Today, this yellow wood, only found in Tasmania, is a protected species, and it continues to enchant those who like beautiful tree varieties.
My name's Alex. I'm a traditional woodworker. This is my workshop. Constructed the workshop as completely open air, so no walls, just open to nature. Some days it'll be snowing, other days it'll be hot, but we're connected with the environment. Some of the tools are up to 300 years old that I'm using and have a remarkable history with them. If someone was to come from 200 years ago in a workshop and move into this workshop, they'd feel completely at home. The project I've been working on is what's called a pin rail, which has belaying pins in for a small boat. And I made that out of Huon pine. Huon pine is a rare timber. It's endemic to Tasmania. It only grows in this small pocket of the globe. When you work with it, it has a scent like no other timber that I've ever worked with. It has a golden, crisp, yellowy colour. You can feel the oil in your fingers. And when you sever the fibre on a piece of Huon pine, it rarely would tear out like a normal fibre in a piece of wood. It responds beautifully to hand tools. And if you're privileged enough to get some, it's a delight to work with. Currently I'm working with Huon pine and this comes from a tree that's probably about, when I looked at the growth rings on it, about 1,200 years old, over 1,000 years old. And it was harvested probably, recently from the bottom of a lake. And if you just smell this timber, it is absolutely exquisite. It's got a beautiful oil in it that preserves the timber, and it's just fantastic. I reckon we'll get one more out of it. So I keep tightening it up until I can hear what I think is about the right note for it to soar on. So it's not a dull, thuddy sound. It sounds like it's got the right tension in it, because if it hasn't got enough tension, it won't feed straight. And that's looking pretty good. So I've started the kerf with a panel saw. We're now moving on to this turning saw. Working with hand tools is so different to working with electrical tools. With an electrical tool, there's this gap between you and the wood. It's almost as if you're insulated from it. With hand tools, it's your hands, it's a metal blade and the timber, and there's an intimate and direct connection. You can see it, you can smell it, you can feel it. There is very little noise. The only noise is a beautiful sound of a sharp tool severing a fibre. When I work in the workshop, it's at a pace that is so different to if I was working in the normal construction industry. You enter this space here and you slow down to a speed of nature. Much of that stress goes, and when you pick up a tool, everything works at a human speed as opposed to an industrial speed. And, it's a much healthier, emotionally pleasant place to be. I think Tasmania generally is becoming known for its special species. So we have a number of species endemic to this state. Kingbilly, celery top, sassafras, and of course Huon pine. And they're sought after timbers by craftspeople from around the world. Fine furniture makers, instrument makers. There's a lot of instrument makers favour some of our endemic species. Yeah, so I suppose we're getting on the map through our timber. So the woodworking I do comes from trees. I use trees from this property. So it's native bush, and there is ample supply of wood here. However, I still have the view that it's important to replace what you take. So for every tree I fell, I will always plant another tree, which means that there are more trees coming on and growing on this property that will ever be taken, and I hope it stays that way. I'm a traditional woodworker, but I'm also a traditional boat person. I've got this thing about old wooden boats. So I have a boat that's nearly 100 years old. It's made partly of hewn pine. It had been very neglected, and I'm in the process of rebuilding that. Fortunately, I live in the most beautiful sailing country. We have people visit our little area here from all over the world to visit our waters. So within 10 minutes of where I live, I have access to these beautiful, pristine, ideal sailing waters. So within 10 minutes, I can be on my boat, hoist the sails up and be sailing off. In Tasmania, there's a term, living the dream, and I think that's every morning, I walk out my back door, I look to the trees, I smell the air, and I think I live in paradise. And I think a lot of people think that about Tasmania.
In the heart of the Australian outback, the little isolated town of Coober Pedy has developed thanks to the exploitation of its mineral wealth. Generations of adventurers came here to try their luck at digging, despite a very uncertain future and tough, dangerous work. Because working in the desert means it soon becomes hard to breathe when temperatures reach 50 centigrade during the summer. The heat, however, doesn't stop Jimmy, 73 years old, a figurehead of this small community.
They call me Jimmy the Runner in Coober Pedy, just because I've been doing many marathons up here. I left Greece when I was 18 years of age. I came to Australia in Coober Pedy to join my brother for the opal mining. And I got stuck here forever and ever. For many years, many times I got broke. That means no luck, so I could get some money, go mining, doing other things, like make houses underground for explosives for other people, making holes for other people, because they're a little bit dangerous, so they hire me to lose my life, not their life. And even the opal industry I was involved, but now, last few years now, of course, I'm doing touring. I'm a tour guide. I love living in Coober Pedy. So every morning we'll have my great coffee, and have a look right the window. I see the sun rising with beautiful colors.
When looking at Coober Pedy from the sky, only some of the accommodations are visible. Most of the local life happens underground, and it has been so since the first pioneers arrived in the early 20th century.
This is a little home. It's been built by, been excavated, I should say, then built by explosives. That's where the miners, they used to come. They didn't think they're going to stay over their life here, so just a simple shelter. So we keep them warm in the wintertime and cool in the summertime. They didn't make it too high because the more high they do, more physical work had to be done. So it was good enough for the time being. The electricity came 1972-73. Before that, we used kerosene fridges, and many times we had carbide lamps. It is for mining. Also, they used the underground house. A bit smelly, but okay. Even myself, I used to do them. Water, probably to have a shower, you know, splash this, that's what it was. Not enough water, as a matter of fact. If rain, we'll have water. No rain, no water. This is a modern house. That's where everybody lives, in underground houses like this. A big lounge, facilities, couches, the television, the lights, chandelier, everything. Good friends of mine, they're living here, and they feel very comfortable in this underground house. This is a kitchen area. There's a fridge, the stove, and the sink. And the ventilation goes up. The pipes sticking out for fresh air coming down. This is one of the bedrooms from underground houses. Very comfortable, very quiet, silence. You can sleep as much as you want to. Sometimes you oversleep because no noise, no sound. If you live underground, you gotta get used to. When there's no electricity, the lights go off. They can be pitch black. You can't even see a millimeter in front of your eyes. So if you're claustrophobic, there's no way you can stay there.
Many people prefer living in these caves in Coober Pedy. A 4-room cave dwelling is the same price as a regular house, but demands less energy because the stone maintains a temperature of 22 degrees. Spirituality is very important for this small community of miners coming from all over the world, and it is underground that they gather every Sunday.
This church being done by volunteers. Not only Serbs, actually, the Serbian Orthodox Church, but some other volunteers chipped in. Of course, the fuel had to pay, and people paid for the fuel here and there. Some other people helping, chipped in to make this beautiful project underground. Well, this church has been excavated with 2 different tunnel machines. The ceiling has been excavated by round tunnel machines. They do round tunnels. This one, they made 5 cuts, one right in the middle, reverse, cut the round tunnel in half, reverse cut the other half, so he made 5 cuts, creating very strong ceiling. It's not flat to worry about maybe a piece fall down or big piece. What we're looking here, it is, the wall there, it is sandstone. It is natural color, this, but a lot of yellow in this church, you can see everywhere. That it is sandstone. It's not a hard rock. If you get a pick and whack it, you're going to break it. This debris became from that inland ocean, as this was underwater. That water was covering 1/3 of the Australian continent at the time. Some people brought that debris over millions of years. When you dig down and do tunnels, you will see different colors. As you see, a lot of yellow, lots of yellow here. Anybody can come to this church. It doesn't matter what religion they are. They're welcome for everyone.
The local shops are also built underground in Coober Pedy. Shops, bars and restaurants, the locals come here to find some fresh air and relax.
I had a good life here in Coober Pedy. I've raised 4 daughters. Yeah, over the years in Coober Pedy, living here, I've been very active in any way you can think of. Helping doctors, translating a little bit there. Many people need a bit of help. Here and there, in the community generally, very much involved. I'm still involved.
Throughout the country, the yellow colour of Australia is related to the history of its rocks. The Pinnacles Desert is located in Nambung National Park in Western Australia. It's like an outdoor geological theatre. With its standing stones made of limestone, this place is even more impressive when considering that it's located on top of sand dunes spreading along the Indian Ocean. The story of these mysterious stone needles, created by erosion and measuring more than 4 meters high in some places, begins in the depths of the sea. These pinnacles are made of fossilized shellfish and take on a variety of shapes. They remind us that long ago, this desert was covered with water. In the far south of Australia, the city of Adelaide is known for its rich cultural life. It is the place chosen by Linda Lee, painter, to practice her craft.
Adelaide can be a fantastic place for artists. It's a very supportive artist community. So there's always lots going on, in particular with the Adelaide Festival and Fringe. We have an entire month of creative people doing creative things. So that's quite unique in Australia. Central markets are a really vibrant part of the city. Lots to do. Always lots of people, really busy. It's one of the most exciting places to go to when you visit Adelaide. Once or twice a week, I like to head out to the market, grab a coffee before heading home, and then maybe off to the studio. The yellow door that we have at the front of our studio is a very bright yellow, very visible from the road for passers-by. I would consider it a welcoming yellow. Yellow can mean lots of things, but this would be, I would say, a very cheerful, come on in and have a look yellow. I guess I describe myself as a colourist. I'm very interested in colour. Colour not in the sense of describing an object, colour in the sense of talking about an emotion that it might evoke or a feeling. I tend to like thinking about how colours sit with each other, maybe fight with each other, and sometimes a painting can be repainted over because certain colours are fighting and you need to change something here and then you might need to change something there. I try to look at using colour that will sometimes conflict with the subject matter that I'm working with. I don't like to represent objects using true colour. I tend to try and look at maybe using surprising colour. Something that will make you stop and think a bit, well, that's not quite right, that shouldn't be that colour. Why is that colour? How does that make me feel when I look at the work? I'm interested in posing those sorts of questions. I've used yellow for the skin colouring, particularly in the Goddess series of paintings, because it gives an unusual, unexpected surprise to people. Because it's not flesh tone, it's something unexpected, gives a sense of the exotic, I think. Also, those bright primary colours like yellow tend to give it almost a pop feel, sort of reference a lot, or that whose work has influenced me a lot would be Frida Kahlo and Leger as well. At the moment I'm working on painting a series of skulls. I guess to me they have an aesthetic beauty, something that really interests me. I find them very beautiful. Again, I have a contrast to my work, so often the background will be something unusual. I've never been too interested in realism. I like to use unexpected ideas, put contradictory backgrounds to create something different. So one of the other artists here, Tom, is very, very fast painter. He's unusual in the sense that he actually uses his hands to paint with instead of a brush. He's a very expressive painter. He works in a completely different way to what I do. He's very spontaneous. He approaches a blank canvas, works with his hands and just works very quickly. He'll complete a whole canvas in a day. As opposed to me, I need to think about what I'm doing. I need to have some sort of map before I begin, and the process is generally quite a long one.
7 Australian artists share this location. The Yellow Door Studio is both a place of creation and exhibition.
This space is fabulous. We're really so lucky to be here. What's great about it is it's such a supportive group of people. It's fantastic to have other people come and look at your work, have an input. You can do the same with others. So there's a really great opportunity to bounce ideas off each other.
In Australia, Melbourne has a reputation for being a stiff and conservative city. At first glance, it certainly doesn't look like a city from the New World, with its fancy buildings, with Victorian facades and its lush parks. The tram running through the city centre amplifies this image of an old European city. The capital city of the state of Victoria is competing with Sydney for the title of the country's business centre. The skyscrapers along the Yarra River are the headquarters of some of the biggest mining companies. Nowadays, the city centre has been transformed and features quite a bit of modern architecture. Street art fans love Melbourne, and it became a reference worldwide in this field. Some walls are even here precisely to be used by graffiti artists. This wind of freedom has attracted many artists from Europe and Asia. Vault is an abstract and minimalist structure installed in front of the Museum of Modern Arts. It is built with big steel sheets put together in a shape that portrays movement. From the beginning, the building of this metal polygon has been controversial. Conservative media called it the Yellow Peril and pointed to its price, $70,000. Nowadays, Vault is considered a key piece in Melbourne's public collection. Australia is a country with many religions, with Islam representing about 2% of the total. Newport district, west of the city, features a suburban landscape undergoing deep transformations and is also home to a building with a modern and simple architecture that attracts the eye. Melbourne's Muslim community gathers under this yellow roof. Architect Hakan Alevli has had the opportunity to be involved in the creation of this mosque, which took 10 years to build.
We're in the main space of Newport Islamic Centre. This is the first Australian mosque that's been designed contemporarily. Generally, we've been designing spaces with the cultural style of either Arabic or Ottoman, but this space here, the community wanted something very different, contemporary, open, very transparent, as you can see. We've created beautiful bifold glass doors and also glass windows on the other side. And the reason why we've done that is so people can see right through the mosque and see what's happening in there without really worrying about what's going on in that space. So it was really important to create this inclusive, beautiful, organic space rather than your work of, enclosed and the traditional way of walking through a little door and so forth. So we didn't want to do that. We thought by having an Australian mosque, we still need to have parts of it that represented Islamic architecture. So we looked at all the mosques that's been built globally, and it always came back to having a gold roof. So we thought we have to have our lanterns in gold. So we have this beautiful structure up there, and we don't regret that at all because this doesn't matter which time of the day, the colours just reflect so well. The whole idea was, look, let's get away from the dome and we'll create the lanterns. And we created this amazing, beautiful, long concrete feature at the beginning. And we're going to decorate that as our minaret and put a beautiful crescent, a gold crescent on that. The other thing we really wanted to do was create this beautiful lanterns with different colours in the space. So what that does is permeates different colours, Islamic colours, through the natural daylight, following the sun. The lanterns reflect the sun by bouncing off the sunlight through the coloured glass, which we purchased from France itself. So it has this beautiful effect throughout the day with its reflection. A lot of the mosques, or all the mosques globally, they had these beautiful red, blue, green and gold mosaic tiles, and that was pretty much everywhere we looked at. They had these colours, so we thought, well, we have to use that within our lantern space, because that's the only area that we really wanted colour. We didn't want to put on our walls or anywhere else, being a contemporary building. So we created these amazing 96 lanterns that again draws the colour down, and we have these beautiful, beautiful lights, rays of light coming in certain times of the day, and that kind of mixes in, fuses in as the time goes on. One of my favourite times that I come here is early morning, when the gold colours are setting in. Gold actually represented paradise. So it was really important, like paradise was the reason why our Prophet utilised this colour. And so when I see that yellow coming through the lanterns onto the carpet, it's just so amazing, and this is why I love this building so much, because it does represent a whole lot of communities. I mean, I am a practicing Muslim, and I love what I do, and I couldn't do anything else, but I do love everyone else that's non-Muslim, and I think that gold colour really does reflect everyone's passion. The young Muslims who are growing up, who don't really associate themselves as being, Arab or a Turk anymore, or any other, culturally, Islamic belief, but they come into this space, they feel like they own it, because it does represent the youth as well. This building to me is the most important piece of work that I've ever done, not only because of who I collaborated with, Glenn Murcutt, but also what it actually represents. Growing up in Australia as a Muslim, as an Australian Muslim, it was really important to give back to our society. I'm proud of the community, I'm proud of what we have done, that we are translating our feelings to the rest of the world.
From Sydney, a cotton-like mist covers the Blue Mountains chain every morning. This region was the setting of a funny story. In 1840, a farmer from Sydney was running after a livestock thief when he stumbled upon a major discovery, a gigantic network of caves like a well-kept secret. Gordon Mills has been a guide at the Jenolan Caves for 12 years.
They're the oldest dated caves on the planet. These caves are here because of this amazing rock we call limestone. All limestone is in fact marine, and it's the shells of marine organisms, marine invertebrates, that have been piled up a bit like a reef, a bit like the Great Barrier Reef, but we're talking way, way back. This is before dinosaurs. Some of the caves here have been dated at 340 million years old. That's a hell of a thing. And they're mainly formed by hydrothermal water. So you've got your sort of volcanic hot springs, your classic hot springs, bubbling up from deep in the earth, dissolving up to make massive solution domes. And the third part of the story of the natural environment at Jenolan is what a lot of people come to see, and that's the crystal. You've got your stalactites, your stalagmites, and they are simply water, rainwater, leaking through cracks in the rock. It's dissolving the mineral out of the limestone. When people first came to these caves, Aboriginal people, tens of thousands of years ago, the Gundungurra and the Wiradjuri are the traditional custodians. We pay respect to elders past and present. They knew the caves were here before anybody.
underground can be found a true natural cathedral in all shades of yellow.
Right now, we're standing at the level of the Jenolan River, and this river has made a good portion of the caves at Jenolan. The water itself is very pure and it's drinkable. In fact, this is our water supply. It's amazing stuff. It's filtered through rock. It's some of the purest water you can ever have. Right now, we have the water just beneath where I'm standing. However, I've many times seen the water at least this high. After several days of rain, 4 or 5 days of heavy rain, it will creep up. The water will creep up, it's happened several times, and you'll notice that's what's moved the sediment around, and that pretty much eventually is what's formed the cave. You can see that there's a distinct yellow tinge, and this yellow comes from this substance called illite. It started off as a volcanic ash and it's been washed into the caves, and it has been brought in by the rising and the falling of the stream next to us. Heavy rain, it will rise and it will wash the sediments. It'll wash the illite, it'll wash all sorts of sediments throughout the cave system, and in this case you see this beautiful yellow tinge, and it's all around us. This area of the cave has a very timeless feeling to me. You can hear the drips of water. That water has been dripping in here since before human civilization existed, and it will continue way past human civilization. You could have come here during the Ice Age, it would look exactly the same.
The Jenolan Caves spread over 40 kilometres and form the biggest known underground network in the world. The most beautiful of these caves can be found behind a small door.
Where we are now is a cave called the Temple of Baal. It's a singular cave. Every single time I come here, it blows me away. It is insanely beautiful. It's like no other cave I've ever seen. Formation here, the Angel's Wing, that's one of many. Well, the Angel's Wing is a shawl, and there's quite a few around here. How shawls differ from normal stalactites. Normal stalactites are a drop of water, just straight down. A shawl is a bit like sticking your arm under a tap, and water's running along the bottom. And it makes this little trail of crystal which it leaves behind. Over thousands of years, tens of thousands, millions of years, you get these larger and larger formations under the right conditions. But they're only about as thick as a pane of window glass. They're quite fragile. You have these amazing crystals growing in the caves here at Jenolan. They are calcite crystal. It's CaCO3, calcium carbonate, but known as calcite. And they can grow in all sorts of different ways and in different directions, and nobody really knows why. Guiding here is telling stories. It is interpreting the natural world, interpreting deep time. The story of the Earth is a story. And the natural world, deep time, they both just tie in beautifully. I started doing a course at college in the Blue Mountains in guiding, and one of my teachers was a guide here, and she steered me towards this job as a casual guide, and I thought it was fabulous. I'd been coming here since a child. I grew up in Sydney. I never thought I could work here in my wildest dreams. I thought you had to go to university for 12,000 years or something to be able to work in a place like this. I've done a couple of short courses in geology, basically reading. I just love finding out the truth, the matter, the truth of things. And the more you find out, the more you realise you don't know. It's the work of a lifetime. In fact, several lifetimes to understand these enigmatic characters that we call caves. Fascinating stuff.
Yellow of today and yellow of yore, Australia is like a jewellery box where the colour of the sun shines in all possible shapes through the hands of artists and in every corner of the wilderness.